Well, hello. Today's review is the 1938 Tarzan movie, Tarzan's Revenge. A young woman named Eleanor accompanies her parents and fiancé to Africa to trap animals for a zoo. An evil sultan sees her and desires to add her to his harem. He bribes the safari guide to have the safari come to his territory so he can kidnap her. Eleanor gets trapped in a creek and for the first time meets Tarzan. He later rescues her from a lioness that came looking for her cubs. He also decides to free the animals that the safari captured. Eleanor goes for a swim and has to outswim a crocodile that is after her, which she does. She then gets captured by the tribe that works for the Sultan. Tarzan has to come to the Sultan's palace and rescue her, which he picks her up and carries her away. Eleanor wants to stay with Tarzan, and the fiancé tries to kill him, but he doesn't succeed, and Eleanor stays with Tarzan. So this is a movie that producer Saul Lesser decided to do. He had some rights yet and wanted to use them. He tried the first Tarzan, of course, with the serial with Buster Crabbe earlier on, and I'll link link to my review on that one. And this time he tried to cast Glenn Morris, who was an Olympic decathlon champion, and Eleanor Holm, who was also an aquatic medalist. And he first he refused to name the Eleanor, Eleanor as Jane. Instead, she's Eleanor in the movie because apparently he thought the public wouldn't accept her as anything because they only knew her as Eleanor, which is kind of a weird thing, Meryl Streep couldn't be named anything but Meryl because that's all the public knows her. It's kind of a weird thing. And he almost was considering Lou Gehrig for the part, but decided against that. Now, at this time, the Johnny Weissmuller MGM ones were already coming out for a while, and they were very successful, and to be honest, quite more superior than this one. I don't think this movie had much going for it, to be honest. The character of Glenn Morris, he had a good physique. Obviously, he was an Olympian, but he just kind of reminds me of Paul Reiser or something. That just doesn't seem to fit what I would envision Tarzan to be. And the Eleanor character was fine. I mean, it had elements that you would expect in a Edgar Rice Burroughs Tarzan one. There's the beautiful woman with the family, the kind of jovial father and the kind of shrew of a mother, and the fiance was, of course, the typical stereotypical bad white guy who seems to exist just to kill every living thing that God created for fun. And of course, there's the evil sheikh who has degenerate designs on the beautiful woman, and there's little moments where they're fighting a lion and fighting natives. But it didn't really have much in substance, I guess you have to say. It just kind of meanders on. Not a lot really happens. They travel, they capture some animals. The character Eleanor meets Tarzan like twice. Once she's getting rescued after the dip of a fiance left her in a creek, and another time when they're swimming together. And there wasn't really much chemistry between them. And then not much happens either because they just kind of meander along. The character Tarzan, they didn't overburden him with very many dialogue. I think he spoke two words in the whole movie: Tarzan and Eleanor, and that's about the extent of his dialogue in the movie. And it just yeah, Eleanor also could apparently outswim a crocodile, which is really impressive because I don't care how much of a medalist you are in swimming. It's hard for a person to really outswim a crocodile, but she did it. And also it was a dull movie. I mean, they just meandered along. They had their little talks and capture animals. Tarzan had to rescue her once, kind of boring fight scene, and at the end he just basically, she gets captured, and he basically just kind of climbs into the Sheikh's palace, picks her up, and carries her out, and that was it. Yeah, it was a very dull movie. It definitely didn't live up to the standards of the Weissmuller films, which were definitely more superior. And he also had really a horrible yell. The Tarzan yell was just pathetic. Yeah, so this is kind of I think, a forgotten movie. Surprisingly, I found that on YouTube there's a number of them that are available colorized. Now, I don't know why someone went through the expense of colorizing this movie, because it's really got to be super, what do you say, obscure. I don't see why that would have been done. But yeah, they did that. So, it floats your boat. You want to watch a colorized version, it's out there. To be honest, though, it's kind of a very dull, uninspiring movie. Glenn Morris and both Eleanor Holm never really went on to anything after this. This was their kind of one big shot at stardom. And so, I would definitely stick with the Weissmuller films if you want good quality Tarzan. And we'll get to those someday. So, if you stuck with me this long, I thank you. You're a unique individual.